Hey there guys, this is my first video on the channel, and I decided to go with something a bit different to what normal people would do. Now, as you've probably seen with my name, I called myself the Supernatural Gamer Guy, but that's purely because I just took two aspects that I'm fairly interested in and put them together. And I couldn't take the actual just Supernatural Gamer, so I just ended up putting Guy in the end. That's just the origin of my name. But this series that I'm starting, Supernatural 101, is going to be a once a week thing, probably. Maybe twice if I'm bored. Where I go over 2 or 3, like, supernatural type things. And sometimes it won't purely be supernatural, even though the title suggests otherwise. It might be, like, things like lucid dreaming, which is going to be in this episode, because it's the type of thing that happens within lucid dreaming. It's purely probably going to be this more spiritual things that just wouldn't happen, that aren't seen as just normal, if you understand what I mean. So today I'm going to talk about the Headless Horseman, ghosts, a haunted house, and last but not least, my experiences with lucid dreaming. I'll start off with the Headless Horseman. Now, as much as people don't know too much about the Headless Horseman, there has been a lot of incantations and depictions of the Headless Horseman throughout a lot of different cultures. I mean, there's a few different types of Headless Horsemen in different cultures. For example, in the Celtic culture, I'm sorry for not being able to get my words out very well. I mean, it's my first commentary. Just bear with me. The Headless Horseman was a headless fairy riding a black horse, carrying his own head under his arm or holding it really high so he can see. And he wielded a whip made of a human's spine. And it's said that whenever he stops running, someone dies instantly. And whenever he calls out a name, the person dies, sort of like Death Note. And in a different version, he's the headless driver of a carriage instead of just a horse, and can easily be frightened away by wielding a gold object or casting one towards it, like throwing. There are a lot of different types of Headless Horsemen. I'll get to the one more typically seen soon. Next, we've got the German one. Right. The German Headless Horseman comes from the folklore surrounded by the Brothers Grimm. Now, the Brothers Grimm took a lot of fairy tales and, things, mythical type things, creatures and such, and sort of put a dark spin on them. And recently, well, not recently, last year, they started a TV series called Grimm, and that was based around some of the stories of the Brothers Grimm. However, I don't like that series. I'd rather stick with Supernatural, but still. Anyway, the German Headless Horseman is sort of more of a story than an actual person, or at least there's one that's more an actual story. It's about a woman who goes out early one Sunday morning to get acorns in a forest at a place called Lost Waters. She hears a hunting horn, like one of those things you see in old movies where they blow into a like a horn or something, like the horn of an animal, and it makes the loud noise. And then she hears it again. She turns around and sees a Headless Horseman in a long grey coat sitting on a grey horse. And that's the end of that story. And in another one, there's, instead of just it being the Headless Horseman, it's called the Wild Huntsman. And that whenever he blows the horn, it warns hunters not to ride the next day. Because if they do, they'll meet with an accident. So he's more of a, instead of a threat, he's more of a warning. But in some other German Headless Horseman stories, instead of being a huntsman or someone who warns people, or just a person without a head on a grey horse, like the first one, he actually, seeks out people who perpetrate crimes. And in some, he has black dogs with tongues made of fire. So yeah, there's been a few different types of Headless Horsemen. Now, we'll get to the one more people actually know about. Now, typically, Headless Horseman, people either learn about him or the character itself through a movie, or not indirectly through the legend of Sleepy Hollow, because the typical modern day like concept of the Headless Horseman tends to come from Legend of Sleepy Hollow, even if people haven't really seen the movie or seen the animated film that Disney did a long time ago. Well, it's one of those things where it's like, to give a more light-hearted analogy, it's like even if you haven't seen The Lion King, you know who Simba is, you know who Mufasa is. It's like that. It's like, even if you haven't seen The Legends of Sleepy Hollow, you've heard about the Headless Horseman. And most people learn about the same version of the Headless Horseman as the one that appears in Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Like I said, the Headless Horseman's appeared in many forms of literature throughout history and throughout the world. Many countries have their own unique version of the legend in which some form of the Headless Horseman appears. For example, in the US, various states have their own version of a Headless Horseman tale. Texas's version of the legend tells of ghosts of beheaded horse thieves who roam the countryside. The more noted and recognisable horseman of today imitates one that appears in Washington Irving short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which is set in America, because, you know, everything is. Its protagonist is a school teacher named Ichabod Crane, whose apparent demise results from a meeting with the horseman. The horseman himself is allegedly a soldier from the Revolutionary War who was decapitated by a cannonball and now roams Sleepy Hollow on the back of his horse, with his severed head resting upon the pommel of his saddle. He is therefore called the Galloping Hessian. The horseman is said to be incapable of crossing a bridge at the town entrance, a possible reference to the belief that ghosts cannot cross water and that vampires cannot cross running water, although he is shown throwing his head across a river to strike down Ichabod Crane. Ichabod's fate is less ambiguous. Some of the background characters allege that he is carried off by the horseman, while others suggest that he's frightened out of the country by the ghost and by the prospect of facing his landlord, later to become a lawyer in Philadelphia. It is implied that the horseman was in fact Brom Bones, Ichabod's rival for hand in marriage of the local girl, Katrina Van Tassel, who imitated the legend of the Galloping Hessian on purpose to kill or frighten away his competitor. The fact that a shattered pumpkin is found inside Ichabod's abandoned hatch supports this, in that the pumpkin may easily have been used to simulate the horseman's severed head. Intriguingly, there is no mention of a severed head in the story heard by Ichabod, though it is prominent in his own encounter with the horseman. Other adaptations include the short horror stories such as The Headless Horseman and Other Ghoulish Poems, or The Headless Horseman Rides Tonight, and it's even been in some plays like The Mystery of the Headless Horseman and A Hollow Sleep by Chris Ebert. The horseman is given another different identity called Heinrich Lundberg, and his origins are explored. The story is told from his perspective instead of more of his victims, if you understand what I mean. I need to see how long this video has been going on, because if it goes over 15 minutes, I'll have to separate it into two parts, because I've still got ghosts and my lucid dreaming to go through. So obviously, ghosts are a more well-known, like, being from, like, from supernatural stuff. And pretty much everyone knows what a ghost is, and some people believe in them, some people don't. Myself, I don't know too much to what extent I believe in ghosts. I believe there's something. Not necessarily a ghost, not necessarily the dead soul of a person, but more so an apparition. Just an echo, if it were. And I honestly don't think that a ghost would be... It's hard to explain. What I mean by an echo is like... whenever you meet a person, it leaves an effect on you. For example, when you meet, say, a friend, you'll always remember a friend for a certain reason, even if you don't see him again. If you've been friends with someone or known someone for a long time, there's always an aspect of that person you will always remember. So I believe that once a person dies, because of how much it affected you and how much that person's death affects you subconsciously, you probably see and enhance aspects of that person and the more memorable moments of that person's life in your head. So say you're around when something funny happens or something scary happens, something that is imprinted inside of your head, and then when that person dies, that thought is amplified in your head because you're constantly thinking about it because that person is dead. And it's subconscious sometimes, because some people act like they're not bothered, but they are subconsciously, especially if it was a friend or a family member or something similar to that. So I believe that because of it being enhanced in your mind, you start to see things, and that's why people can state that they've seen ghosts of things. But another contrary, fact to that could be, okay, well, if it's an echo of that person's former life, then why do people say that when they go in haunted houses they see things? Now, the reason that is because usually big haunted houses people know about before they go in. You don't tend to go in a haunted house not knowing about the fact that the house would be haunted. Meaning that if you go in and you expect it to be haunted, and then that feeling is amplified in your head and you start to see things. Which is why in some movies, different people's recantations of what they saw is different. Or when you see all these ghost shows where they go into the haunted places, different people's stories is never actually the same, because it's their own mind's interpretation thrusting themselves upon themselves, if that makes sense to you. So that's my belief towards ghosts, because I can't really go on to origins of ghosts because people already know, but still. I don't know whether to do lucid dreaming this video or next video because I've only got 3 minutes left. I think I'll just leave lucid dreaming for the next episode. Okay guys, so that was my first video. If you enjoyed, please go ahead and subscribe, or just stick around, but that's basically subscribe. Either way, just thanks for watching, see you later, bye bye.